The United States did not enter World War II as a nation fully prepared to fight a global conflict. In fact, when the war began in Europe in 1939, America stood at a distance, protected by oceans and shaped by a long tradition of isolationism. The U.S. military was relatively small, its forces scattered, and its experience limited to conflicts that were regional rather than global in scale. Yet by the end of the war, the United States had mastered the art of fighting on multiple continents simultaneously, coordinating land, sea, and air power across vast distances. This transformation did not happen overnight. It was learned through early mistakes, hard lessons, adaptation, and an unprecedented ability to turn failure into momentum. Before World War II, American military doctrine was shaped by the experiences of World War I and decades of limited engagement abroad. The U.S. Army was underfunded and outdated, the Navy was strong but not optimized for a global war, and coordination between branches was often inefficient. War planning existed largely on paper, based on theoretical scenarios rather than real-world conditions. Many American leaders believed that if the United States were ever drawn into another major war, it would have time to prepare. This assumption was shattered on December 7, 1941, when the attack on Pearl Harbor forced the United States into a conflict that was already raging across the globe. The shock of Pearl Harbor exposed critical weaknesses. The United States now faced enemies in both Europe and the Pacific, each requiring vastly different strategies. The Pacific demanded naval power, long-range logistics, and island-based warfare across enormous distances. Europe required cooperation with allies, large ground forces, and complex coordination across multiple fronts. Early American efforts reflected this lack of experience. In North Africa, U.S. forces suffered serious setbacks, revealing deficiencies in leadership, training, and coordination. These defeats were painful, but they were also essential. They forced the United States to confront reality quickly and honestly, something that would become one of its greatest strengths. Unlike many of its enemies, the United States demonstrated a remarkable willingness to learn and adapt. After early failures, command structures were reformed, ineffective leaders were replaced, and training was intensified. The American military began to emphasize joint operations, integrating the Army, Navy, and Air Forces into a coordinated system rather than independent entities competing for resources. This shift was revolutionary. Modern global war required seamless cooperation between branches, and the United States began building that system while the war was already underway. One of the most important lessons the United States learned was the central role of logistics. Fighting a global war meant more than winning battles. It meant sustaining armies across oceans for years at a time. Every soldier required food, ammunition, fuel, medical care, and equipment, all delivered reliably and in massive quantities. American planners understood that logistics would determine success or failure. This realization shaped strategy at every level. Operations were planned not only based on tactical goals, but on the ability to supply them. The result was a logistical network of unprecedented scale, capable of supporting operations in Europe, North Africa, the Pacific, and Asia simultaneously. Strategic coordination with allies was another critical area of learning. The United States did not fight alone. Cooperation with Britain, the Soviet Union, and other allied nations required diplomacy, compromise, and shared planning. Disagreements were frequent, especially regarding priorities and timing. Yet the United States learned how to operate within a coalition, balancing its own interests with the broader goal of defeating the Axis. The decision to prioritize Europe first, despite the emotional impact of Pearl Harbor, reflected strategic maturity. American leaders understood that Germany posed the greatest long-term threat and that defeating it would weaken the entire Axis structure. As the war progressed, American forces gained experience and confidence. Training became more realistic, command structures more flexible, and coordination more effective. Air power was integrated with ground operations. Naval forces supported amphibious assaults with precision, and intelligence sharing improved dramatically. The United States learned how to plan and execute large-scale operations involving hundreds of thousands of troops, from the landings in North Africa to the invasion of Normandy. Each operation built upon the lessons of the previous one, creating a cumulative advantage that grew stronger over time. In the Pacific, the learning curve was equally steep. Early defeats and hard-fought battles revealed the challenges of fighting an enemy entrenched across island chains. The United States adapted by developing new tactics such as island hopping, which bypassed heavily defended positions in favor of strategic targets. Amphibious warfare evolved rapidly, supported by naval gunfire, air superiority, and improved coordination between forces. The ability to conduct simultaneous campaigns across thousands of miles demonstrated a level of operational mastery that few nations in history had ever achieved. Leadership played a crucial role in this transformation. American command structures encouraged debate, evaluation, and adjustment. Mistakes were analyzed rather than ignored, and success was measured by effectiveness rather than ideology. This pragmatic approach allowed the United States to refine its methods continuously. The war became not just a test of strength, but of learning speed. In this contest, the United States proved exceptionally capable. By the later stages of the war, the United States had become a truly global military power. It could plan, supply, and execute operations on multiple fronts without losing coherence or momentum. Its forces were no longer inexperienced newcomers, but seasoned professionals operating within a highly integrated system. The combination of industrial power, logistical mastery, strategic coordination, and adaptive leadership created a war-fighting capability that overwhelmed its enemies. Victory was no longer uncertain. It was a matter of time. World War II fundamentally reshaped how the United States understood war. The lessons learned during this conflict would shape American military doctrine for decades to come. Global reach, joint operations, alliance coordination, and logistical dominance became permanent features of U.S. strategy. The United States did not simply win World War II. It learned how to fight wars on a global scale, setting the foundation for its role as a superpower in the modern world. If you liked this video and want to explore more stories, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. There is always more history to uncover, and every lesson from the past helps us understand the world we live in today. See you soon.